awesome place.
Anthony Bourdain, Parts Unknown, tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern, right here on CNN. Again, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me. I'm Frederica Whitfield. Sexual harassment claims and a major move today on Capitol Hill. Congressman John Conyers, the Michigan Democrat and longest-serving member in the House, says he is stepping down as ranking member of the Judiciary Committee. This is in direct response to the congressional investigation into sexual harassment and workplace abuse allegations leveled against Conyers by former staffers. In a statement, Conyers says, quote, "I deny these allegations, many of which were raised by documents reportedly paid for by a partisan alt-right blogger. I very much look forward to vindicating myself and my family before the House Committee on Ethics. I cannot, in good conscience, allow these charges to undermine my colleagues in the Democratic caucus and my friends on both sides of the aisle in the Judiciary Committee and the House of Representatives," end quote. A senior Democratic aide tells CNN that Conyers' decision to step aside as ranking member of the Judiciary Committee comes after days of House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi working behind the scenes with Conyers and other Congressional Black Caucus members to lay the groundwork for Conyers to step aside from that committee gracefully. Joining me now, CNN's Kaylee Hartung. So, Kaylee, how is Pelosi responding today?
Well, Fred, over the course of this day, different tones from Nancy Pelosi following Conyers' announcement that he would step aside as the ranking member on the Judiciary Committee. She struck a very firm tone in a written statement saying, quote, "Zero tolerance means consequences. I have asked for an ethics investigation, and as that investigation continues, Congressman Conyers has agreed to step aside as ranking member. As a woman and mother of 4 daughters, I particularly take any accusation of sexual harassment very seriously. We are at a watershed moment on this issue, and no matter how great an individual's legacy, it is not a license for harassment. I commend the brave women coming forward." But this morning on Meet the Press, just a couple of hours before that statement, Pelosi defended Conyers. She went so far as to call him an icon of our country. Take a listen.
You said there's now a zero tolerance.
Yes.
John Conyers, what does that mean for him right now?
Let's say
in or out?
We are strengthened by due process. Just because someone is accused, and was it one accusation? Is it 2? I think there has to be. John Conyers is an icon in our country. He's done a great deal to protect women, Violence Against Women Act, which the right wing is now quoting me as praising him for his work on that, and he did great work on that. But the fact is, as John reviews his case, which he knows, which I don't, I believe he will do. I believe that he will.
How is it that
excuse me, may I finish my sentence?
Sure.
That he will do the right thing.
I guess it goes back to what is this line? Right? What is a fireable offense? You say it's zero tolerance.
Yes.
But what does that mean if you're saying John Conyers, who already had due process, gets to stay right now?
Well, as I said, we've asked for the Ethics Committee to review that, and he, I believe, will do the right thing.
Where are you
it's
on
about
Senator
going
Franken?
forward.
Now that we have a better understanding, we believe, of what's been going on behind the scenes, that Pelosi has been working for days with Conyers and other members of the Black Congressional Caucus to lay the groundwork for him to step aside gracefully. Perhaps that's why you saw Pelosi repeatedly today say that she thought Conyers would do the right thing. That, of course, before he stepped aside today. Now, Conyers continues to deny the allegations against him, but says, Fred, he will cooperate with the House Ethics Committee investigation of him.
All right, Kaylee, and Pelosi calling him an iconic figure. He is a co-founder of the Congressional Black Caucus, Korean war vet, civil rights activist, and now this Ethics Committee will continue its investigation right there on Capitol Hill. All right, thank you so much, Kaylee. Also breaking this hour, we're hearing from Senator Al Franken, who just did an interview with his hometown paper, the Minneapolis Star-Tribune. One woman claims the Minnesota Democrat sexually harassed her back in 2006 before he was in the U.S. Senate. And a second woman says he groped her during a photo op in 2010 while he was a senator. CNN's Ryan Young is in Minneapolis. So, Ryan, today's interview breaking the senator's silence now on these allegations. What is he saying?
Yeah, obviously this is a conversation that a lot of people were paying attention to. He hasn't said anything over the last 8 days. We know he did this interview from D.C., reaching out here to local papers, also the local television station here, and having that conversation about exactly what happened. And we just got some quotes from the paper, and I want to read these to you. And quote number one, he talks about the idea that he says, "I'm embarrassed and ashamed. I've let a lot of people down, and I'm hoping I can make it up to them and gradually regain their trust." And in the second quote, he says, "I don't remember these photographs. I don't. This is not something I would intentionally do." And the question was asked to him, will any more women come forward? He says, as of right now, he said if 2 weeks ago he would ask him that question, he would have thought he would have never been in this position. So he says, as of right now, he doesn't know how to answer that question. We do know locally here at 10:30 tonight, a TV station here will air an interview with him, and they'll do the first sit-down interview and have that conversation about all these allegations. He says he does plan to go to work tomorrow morning, and he is looking forward to it. Fred?
All right, Ryan Young, thank you so much. All right, joining me now to discuss these two breaking stories involving these lawmakers. John Thomas is a CNN political commentator and Republican consultant. Dave Jacobson is a CNN political commentator and a Democratic strategist. Paige Pate is a CNN legal analyst and a constitutional attorney. Good to see all of you. All right, so Dave, you first. What are your thoughts on Conyers stepping down as ranking member of the House Judiciary Committee, and this being now the result of these discussions potentially between Conyers, Minority Leader Pelosi, and members of the Congressional Black Caucus?
I think it's a positive step in the right direction, but it's not enough. If Democrats want to lead the charge forward and be the party and the brand of equality and inclusivity and a safe and healthy work environment, we're the party backing equal pay for equal work. We should also have a zero tolerance policy when it comes to sexual harassment and misconduct in the workplace. And so I think, frankly, whether it's Conyers or Al Franken, while there's an enormous amount of daylight between them and Roy Moore, these leaders need to step aside because it's a brand issue symbolically for the Democratic Party, and it's tainting our brand.
So, John, you're shaking your head.
Yeah,
Why?
yeah. I mean, Dave's right in the sense of this is a major brand issue. I mean, Frederica, this morning on Meet the Press, the leader of the Democratic Party just called an accused sexual harasser an icon. Next thing she's going to say is what? Is Harvey Weinstein a legendary figure because he gave so much to Democratic figures over the years? No, these are bad people. They have to go. And it seems like the congressman stepped down probably only to cover her tracks after what she said at Meet the Press. But here's the bigger issue, Frederica. Is this moral equivalency of, well, it's not quite as bad as what Roy Moore did is disgusting, and the Democrats, as of this morning, have completely recused themselves or given up the moral high ground in this sexual harassment debate.
But John, there is enormous daylight. Like, Roy Moore has been accused by 30 or so women, as reported by multiple media outlets, not just the Washington Post, of child molestation. That's very different from sexual harassment.
And that's
many degrees of separation.
Disgusting. And Representative Conyers used our taxpayer dollars to cover up his misdoings. Is that appropriate, Dave?
I'm not saying that what he did was appropriate. I think he needs to step aside. But I think there's a significant difference between that and child molestation.
Frederica,
so Dave, you think he should step aside altogether? You think that this stepping aside as their ranking member on the House Judiciary Committee should be a precursor to, or that eventually it should be leading to John Conyers stepping down as a member of Congress altogether, Dave?
I do think he should step down from Congress. I think the Democratic Party needs to cleanse itself of the taint that is any Democrat who's associated with this kind of sexual misconduct. If we are the party who's going to go into 2018 and campaign against sexual misconduct and campaign against sexual harassment and be the brand and the party of inclusivity and equality in the workplace, then we can't have these figures associated with us as a party.
So John, we actually had former Congressman Barney Frank on earlier, and he thought it was still appropriate that John Conyers would be called an iconic figure because of his history making involvements, whether it be Korean War, as a co-founder of the Congressional Black Caucus. Even Pelosi said he's done outstanding work with the, involving the Women's Violence Act, and that there are a number of involvements involving the Civil Rights Movement that earn him the phrase iconic. But as it pertains to these allegations, Paige, while the Ethics Committee will be looking into John Conyers, also allegations involving Senator Al Franken, does that preclude any possibility of any kind of criminal investigations, even potential civil judgments that would be pursued against at least these two lawmakers as we hear about these allegations?
Not necessarily. I think both on the criminal side and the civil side, it's going to depend on the timing of these allegations. If you have somebody saying something happened 10 plus years ago, that type of claim is almost never going to be able to see the inside of a courtroom. In civil litigation and in criminal cases not involving children, very different situation, those claims usually need to be made quickly so that they can be investigated. I think the problem that they have here in Congress, forget the politics for a second, on the legal standpoint, I mean, you hear Ms. Pelosi talking about due process. Well, it's a very convoluted, difficult system to navigate for somebody who's serving in Congress as a staff member who wants to report sexual harassment. And so the problem that we're seeing now is that they're kind of having to do it in the back door. They're waiting years later till somebody's interested in paying attention to it. So if they want to be serious about addressing these problems and keeping it in-house, which is what they seem to want to do, they need to set up a better system to do it.
And Dave, is that now part of the problem, that trying to handle or manage these allegations in an insular way has now, come to the forefront, it's bubbled to the surface, and so people are now saying, is this right? I mean, now we, of course, are hearing there are efforts being put underway to make sure that people get, proper education and awareness on how to deal with, how to identify sexual harassment, and that perhaps this might be a turning point on how to best handle allegations from this point forward.
Sure. I mean, I think Pelosi was right in the sense that earlier today she issued a statement saying that this is a watershed moment. And I do think that members of Congress and staffers, as they go into office, should get proper training to know these are do's and don'ts, right? But I also think there is somewhat of a double standard. This was a topic discussed earlier on Meet the Press, the show that Pelosi was on, where they talk about this dynamic where if you're in business or you're in Hollywood or you're in the media and these allegations come out, you're cut, you're fired
there are immediate
immediately.
Consequences.
Correct, where there's this double standard with folks who are
but
in
if
politics.
You're in politics, go ahead.
Precisely. Right. And there's sort of this double standard, and we should have our office holder, they should be held to the highest standards, right? These are the folks who we look up to, who lead our government. And so I think this training perhaps is a positive step in the right direction, but I think, and I'm not a policy leader, but I do think that we as a Democratic Party need to come up with comprehensive solutions on how to move the ball forward in a more meaningful way.
Yeah, so then the question becomes, John, from there, why is it different? Should it be different, or should there be uniformity in which what the consequences are and how quickly the consequences may or may not come?
You do need uniformity. I mean, I'll just say it. This process is clearly rigged to defend, to protect the politicians. That's what they've got, whether it's making it difficult for accusers to come forward and make those accusations, having things done behind closed doors. These settlements are able to be made public at the option of the member, not at a public records request. I mean, all of that stuff has to be transformed. And also, I think we need to use the same standards as if we're, it's like we're calling Roy Moore a bad actor, which he is. But he's had a long career of many accomplishments. But I would never call him an icon. The guy's a predator. And we just have to call him that, and we have to call Conyers that, and we have to call Bill Clinton for his alleged rape accusations that. I don't care what legislative achievements they have or have not had.
All right, real quick, Paige. Yes. Uniformity on the way? No.
Oh, I don't
reasonable
know.
to even think?
It's Congress, so everybody has their own agenda. But we have seen some legislation, I think, at least drafted and dropped, where they're going to consider coming up with a process that doesn't discourage reports. It actually encourages legitimate reports. Instead of saying, you file it, you give you 30 days to wait, another 30-day cooling off period, and then we stuff it in an envelope somewhere and put it in the drawer. That's not the way to aggressively handle these things if you're going to be serious about sexual harassment.
All right, Paige, John, Thomas, Dave, Jacobson, thanks to all of you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.